The entire country was mobilized. No bureaucratic formalities. If someone had what we needed, we took it. No formalities. We'd worry about the cost later. We took whatever we needed. It was a frontline situation.
General Nikolai Tarakanov is sent to command the land troops.
In 1 year, 100,000 soldiers and officers passed through Chernobyl. They were all reservists. They were summoned up by top administration in their cities and sent to the front.
Military personnel or civilians, officers or simple soldiers, all of them are liquidators, a term invented for the Battle of Chernobyl. Their mission? Clean up, liquidate the radioactivity.
Сначала ходишь первые дни, прячешься, одеваешь маску, а потом уже забываешь, даже на производстве уже забываешь одевать ее. Уже как дома, чувствуешь себя действительно, привыкаешь здорово.
Все улыбаются, все довольны. Водку не продают. Вообще в Москве такой слух был, что на Чернобыль приезжает, водителям каждый день дают 150 грамм этого.
Я с женой разговаривал
150,
и
да.
рассказываю, говорю, в столовую заходишь 150, выходишь 150. Она, ты хоть закусывай там.
Igor Kostin was one of 5 war reporters authorized by the Kremlin to cover the battle. A first in a country that kept everything hidden. 3 of his colleagues are now dead.
There were no titles, no ministers, generals or soldiers. No one was saying, I'm a general, do what I say. Everyone was honestly doing what they could. And so the operation named the liquidation of the Chernobyl accident was set in motion.
100,000 troops, as well as 400,000 civilians, workers, engineers, nurses, doctors and scientists from every Soviet republic passed through Chernobyl. The Soviet Union is waging its last major battle.
500,000 people. The troops in Chernobyl were bigger than Napoleon's, but our army got contaminated.
From the sky, helicopters drop tons of a sticky liquid dubbed Berber, a mixture that coagulates and plasters the radioactive dust to the ground. Meanwhile, brigades of liquidators are put in charge of cleaning up the zone and house by house of removing the layer of radioactive dust that covers everything.
Создавались специальные бригады охотников.
Special hunting squads were formed. They patrolled the countryside and forest with rifles, killing cats and dogs.
All the animals have to be killed because when they wander through the highly contaminated zones, their fur soaked up the radioactivity. They could contaminate the liquidators. The last villages with people still remaining in the zone are evacuated. The houses are knocked down one by one and buried. At night, the trucks, the machines and the men are covered in radioactive dust.
We would wash 5 or 6 times in the shower. We helped each other. We used a hemp glove and the roughest soap available. We scrubbed away. We put on new clothes, then we ate. We ate really well there, because you need to keep your strength up to fight the ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation seeks out the weak spots in your body
должен быть очень крепкий. Очень крепкий. И ионизирующее излучение.
That's where it finds a way in and knocks you out.
И туда стреляет.
Around the plant, a colossal operation is set in motion. It goes on 7 days a week without a single day off. 300,000 cubic meters of contaminated earth are bulldozed into huge ditches and covered over with cement.
This spot, around the fourth reactor, is where the most dangerous missions of the zone took place.
8 weeks after the explosion, the liquidators tackle the heart of the problem. In order to neutralize the toxic waste for the long term and prevent it from spreading even more, the entire blown-out reactor has to be isolated. Lev Bolchakov was one of the engineers who designed the enormous structure that would entirely cover the fourth reactor. A sarcophagus of steel and concrete, 170 meters long and 66 meters high.
It was one of a kind, a unique project. No one had ever built such a structure in a zone this radioactive. You could only work a few minutes at a time. That had never been done before.
It is an enormous challenge. How do you build a monumental structure in a place where humans can work for only a few minutes, or even just seconds at a time? This utterly new situation will require more improvisation from the liquidators and put more lives at risk. It has now been more than 12 weeks since the initial blast at block number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. To stop the deadly contamination, the final attack is launched. Radioactivity in this sector is so high that only remote-controlled machines can be sent in. But people will have to get the machines into position. Workers can only stay a few minutes without receiving a fatal dose of radiation. With each second, their lives are more and more threatened.
Here's one of the armored vehicles. It looks primitive, but we had to build them ourselves. We lined the cabs entirely with lead to protect our soldiers from the radiation as best we could.
Each metallic piece of the structure is prefabricated, sometimes hundreds of kilometers away, then brought one by one onto the site for assembly. An extraordinary jigsaw puzzle. Beams 150 tons and 70 meters long. Buttresses 45 meters high.
That's the Dimak 4000. Look at the size of this crane. We couldn't work very long on the side, and there was no room for error. The slightest miscalculation, and it would have been impossible to fit it all together.
Despite the extreme conditions, work progresses. 100,000 cubic meters of cement are used to make the structure.